What is up, everybody? It's your boy Duty back again with another video, and this time we're taking a look at DSP Gaming / GSP Reacts financial information and doing a weekly audit of the business. That's right, folks. It's your favorite segment, my favorite segment, everyone's favorite segment. Yes, folks. Now, yeah, so I just finished going through the numbers and pulling in the financials for DSP Gaming and DSP Reacts. And I guess I'll go through them first, and then I will tout some of the goodness, and then, of course, some of the badness for our boy Phil. It was a mixed bag this week, and of course, we all know Phil went on a jihad against low support and made sure that the dents came out and rallied. And I'll put it this way, it was better than last week, but not by much. So let's get into the numbers and let's discuss, folks. So, of course, the work week started on October 13th and spanned through the 18th of 2023. And for the work week, Phil pulled in for tips $1,061 compared to $950 that he made last week. Now, you guys know yesterday last week I made it a point that Phil made a whopping $1 more in support week over week from the previous 2 weeks, which was pretty abysmal for Phil. Now this week he made a little bit more, so good on Phil for that. So he did pull in about $111 more in tips. And that took a lot of heavy lifting, and it took a lot of begging, and it took a lot of support from our man OIC. That's right, OIC has been gone, but of course his alter ego Lisa Lou has been back supplying tips and support. No memberships, but the tips have been there. So I guess OIC decided that he was going to listen to Dear Master, limit how many memberships he would gift, and focus on the tipping, because of course we all know Phil has 2 big bills and a whole bunch of games he had to buy. When we know the actual truth is he just had to spend it on WWE Champions. So yeah, he pulled in a whopping $1,061 in tips, which of we know $950 plus probably a little bit more went directly into WWE Champions. Big ups to TJ Gamebox for reporting that. That's right, in the last week or so, Phil has spent $950 on WWE Champions. Actually, no, let me correct that. He actually spent $950 on one day, and then went ahead and spent another $600. So, my mistake. Phil actually spent $1,500 on WWE Champions. So, as we know, yeah, so that's probably why Phil was going pretty crazy this week on support and making sure that the tips came in, because he needed to make sure he had enough money for WWE Champions. So my apologies. That's right. Phil did spend $1,500. And of course, that spanned more than a week. It was about a week and a half. So essentially, all the tips that he received for the last 2 weeks have mainly gone to WWE Champions. Great job there, Dens. Great job. And the other day, you guys know that I kind of lost my shit over the dents, continually to fund Phil's poor choices and his behavior. And much like an alcoholic and being an enabler, these morons continue to allow him to, delve into his addictions. But anyway, we're here for the laughs, and we're here to make fun of Phil. So, all this does is just leads to a downward spiral that Phil one day Phil will not be able to get out of. Okay, so for super chats, Phil made $275 for the work week, which it was an increase. Last week he made $239. But as we know, whenever tips increase, super chats decrease. He never seems to get he never gets to seem to get support across the board. Like, you would expect him to get a certain amount of memberships, a certain amount of super chats, and then if he's begging for tips, the tips should be significant. That is not the case. The tips are okay, they're average, but the super chats are down, the memberships are down, and yeah, I mean, I'm guessing what's going to happen is toward the end of the month, he'll make a big push for super chats and memberships, just like he's done in the past few months. And OIC and the lot will come in and rescue him and get him hopefully back over 500. I think he's down to what, 475 now, and with his day off, he's probably going to drop to another four. It should probably drop to about 430, 440, which should be interesting to see tomorrow. But you know, as soon as he gets his check on Monday, he'll definitely be hitting the super chats and the super chats and the memberships really hard for the next 10 days or so. So the grand total for the work week, Phil pulled in $1,336 compared to what he pulled in last week, which was $1,189. Now that $1,336 is kind of average of what Phil has been making on his good weeks. But you guys have to remember, this is the hardcore begging season or the hardcore gaming season. And those numbers should be up. I mean, you compare that to what he pulled in last year for the same time. So last year for that same period, Phil managed to pull in, let's see what Phil managed to pull in. Phil managed to pull in, and I'm sorry, I should have done this before for the video, but you know, it is what it is. Okay, Phil managed to pull in almost $1,700 for the same time period last year. That's a significant dip of about $400 in support. And that's been the trend all year. It just has. And when we do the year over year, you'll definitely see the disparity in his income year over year. So he's been hit pretty bad this year. And the other interesting thing is when we look at the monthly totals and the monthly views, wow, it's bad for Phil. Okay. So, like I said, he pulled in $1,336 this week compared to $1,189. So he did see an increase in tips. So big ups for Phil for claiming jihad against low tips. So if we look so far for October, Phil has managed to make $3,154. So Phil has roughly about 10 days left, 2 of which he won't stream. So you figure about 8 days of streaming. He may get up to the 4,000 mark, which is slightly higher than his low mark, but it's not too great. And the other indicator here that looks really bad for Phil is I usually report out the viewer counts for the month at the end of the month, but I was curious to see what Phil did this month so far, and it's bad. So far for October for DSP Gaming and DSP Rack, Phil has pulled in 319,000 views. Remember, he has less than 10 days left of streaming. He has about 8 days of streaming. That's not good. I mean, if these numbers hold up, he might be under 500K. And then you could just see every month it's just a precipitous dip in views. And I know Phil likes to say that views don't matter to his channel. It does. That's not accurate. It does. I mean, the tips and support and all that, I guess, the tips and the super chats are the main driver, but that does equate. So put it this way: if you have less views in your video, because when your view counts are being totaled, they're also doing the view counts for who's looking at the podcast live. So that could be an indication that you have less people on your live stream, which means less people, which means less support, right? And the other thing is ad revenue. I know you love to complain that ad revenue is dog shit on YouTube, but a channel pulling in 500,000 views a month will get about $2,000, $2,500 in ad revenue. They roughly get about $2,000, $2,500. So I mean, it does impact. When you have low view counts, you don't get as much ad revenue. You just don't. And yeah, I mean, Phil's October check is going to be, for his, one of his favorite words, abysmal. It's not going to be good. And I can see him having a bit of a breakdown for November, December, especially if we keep having these slow support short streams like Sonic. Sonic was pretty bad for Phil. He only got 2 days out of it and managed to pull $150. That was it for 2 days for something he invested $60 in, which we keep hearing over and over again. And Phil won't let that go. So if Super Mario Brothers, if the same thing happens and the support's not there, because we all know Nintendo games don't bring in views for Phil, we may have a breakdown. We may just have a breakdown. Okay, so let's look at the yearly total so far for 2023 and compare it to 2022. So far, Phil has made $43,743 in tips, compared to what he made last year was $52,434. That's a decrease of 17%. That number's still holding up there, Phil. It doesn't seem like you're, even with your bag and your jihad against low support, you still haven't managed to lower that decrease year over year. You're still at 17%. And if we look at Super Chats, he pulled in $17,516 so far this year. Compare that to last year, where he pulled in $21,119 for a net decrease of negative 18%. Now, you guys know the last several weeks, that number's been at 17% pretty steadily, both for tips and Super Chats. That has increased, which means Phil's making less than Super Chats. And that just proves my point that when Phil, targets specific support, he's not going to get more money. They're just shuffling the money. The dents are just not giving Super Chats and giving tips. They're not giving more. They're just taking away from one pile and distributing it to the other pile. So don't let Phil fool you when he tried to tell you that the business is doing well. It's not. It's not at all. So if we look at the grand totals for this year so far, Phil has managed to pull in $61,259 in tips and Super Chats, compared to last year where he made $73,553 for a net decrease of negative 17.5%. That's right. So that number ticked up just because the Super Chats are, for lack of a better word, have been abysmal. So yeah, I don't see anything. I don't see it getting better for Phil. I know he talks about the hardcore gaming season and all of these game releases coming out, but what really is out there that's really going to pull in the seats to the seats? Who's going to pull the butts up for the views? Mario? No, Nintendo games don't do well for Phil. He's not going to do Lord of the Fallen. He's pushing that until November, and from all reports, a lot of people don't like Lord of the Fallen. They think it's pretty crappy. It's not that great. So really, what else? Sonic was a bomb. I don't know what else may come. Maybe Call of Duty, but even Call of Duty, it's hit or miss for Phil. Remember last year, it was hit or miss. He tried to institute bounties, and that went away because, people weren't paying or they were using it to troll him. So yeah, Phil better come up with another way of making income, because this just isn't working out for him. So anyway, that's the video, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed it. See you in the next one. Peace out.